Welcome back to, I don't know what this is. This is an SRX review show, I guess. Like recapping the season a little bit. I'm Casey Campbell. You know that's Mitchell Brewer from News from the Pits. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Figured with everything off for a while, I figured we need stuff to talk about. So how about this SRX season? We just saw it conclude the 6 weeks with beginning at Stafford and ending at the Nashville Fairgrounds. Overall, this was, I think, a really, really good thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I had mentioned it in our last time talking where I thought it could easily been like one of those things that was like a good idea in theory and then executed poorly, but all the way through 6 weeks, even before the 6 weeks, this was executed perfectly. I think they have to be really happy with their results overall.
Yeah. I got to ask you, what was your favorite part?
Honestly, this last weekend where it was kind of like the perfect storybook ending to a really great first overall season where it couldn't have worked out better for them, where you had Chase and Bill battling for the lead. You had Tony Stewart, who's been the face of the series all season long, right up there with them. Honestly, that in general, and along with the packed crowd at Nashville Fairgrounds, that, in my opinion, was just one of the coolest things about this series so far.
Yeah, of course. Kind of looking into this season, we were wondering what was going to happen. We saw the race at Stafford. It was good, but the changes that they made when we got to Knoxville, with the cars and with the names, the graphics that CBS kind of put on, those were necessary changes, and it overall worked. It's like, the races fit in the 2-hour time window. Maybe they need a little bit more time to kind of fit in with, trying to get interviews just in case things go over. Like, I know that's TV's worst nightmare, but overall, it was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Even that first week where like the period where like things were going wrong from a viewership standpoint, it was just like, you didn't really notice that because there was just so much fun going on at all times. And props to SRX where it was like they saw what needed to be fixed and they fixed it right away, which I think could be a big criticism I'm not going to just single out NASCAR here. Of all of the motorsport series, they saw what they needed to fix right away and they're like, okay, we're free to tweak with it just because it is not as serious as any of the other major motorsports companions, but they just kept getting better and better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I gotta say that out of the 12 drivers that were in the field, I know Tony Stewart and everybody else that was in there, and it was a good field of drivers. Bobby Labonte, Bill Elliott, Michael Waltrip, Elio, Tony Kanaan, Willie T. Ribbs, Ernie Francis Jr., Marco Andretti. We had a lot of drivers from a lot of different racing disciplines, and again, they put on a good show.
Absolutely, and I feel like each and every one of them had like their kind of like moment to shine. I mean, you can say about what you will about Paul Tracy and how aggressive he was. He had some moments where he was up front. Bill Elliott this past weekend, after the just horrendous batch of luck that he had went through up till this point, he had a chance to run up front. All these guys kind of getting that. And Michael Waltrip had talked about this when he was in his SRX media availability, where he was just like, I wanted that one last moment to shine. And it feels like these guys kind of got that moment to shine. And now they're even thinking like, hey, maybe I can stretch this out for a couple of more seasons because it's just so much fun. It's just so cool to see all these guys that like, especially guys like maybe like a Bobby Labonte who kind of exited NASCAR on poor terms, not exactly the farewell tour that everybody gets. He got his chance to go out and show, hey, I can still sort of do this. I think that was very cool to see.
Yeah, it was good to see Bobby Labonte doing this. And we thought he'd do pretty well because he's not been in the, it hasn't been that long since he's been in the car. In fact, he's running modifieds.
Exactly, yeah.
For a lot of those guys. One of my favorite parts about this series is the local guys and the ringers taking place. Haley Deegan was in there for a little bit. I like the ringers a little bit. Doug Coby got his moment at Stafford. When you look at what Cody Swanson and how he did at Eldora, or 17-year-old Luke Fenhouse at Slinger, And I gotta say, and we'll get to the tracks in a minute, but I just want to say, the best race out of all of them, in my opinion, is Slinger. I just love that track.
That was a fun one. I think I'd honestly, looking back at it, I think I honestly have to agree with you, just because everything. It was another situation where, like, this series, everything worked out perfectly, where all these different stories were being told, and especially like you said, with all these like young guys or guys just looking for the opportunity, it worked out perfectly for him. And that was one of like, it was interesting that was one of the most charming parts of the series. That's called superstar racing experience, where you got all these legends that are supposed to be focused on. Meanwhile, these young guys trying to make a name for themselves, young guys and gals. Because Haley Deegan, I think she was very impressive in her performances. Maybe not as great this last weekend at Nashville Fairgrounds, but even she made a pretty good name for herself. And I think that overall, I think you make a really good point. That was really something fun to watch.
Of course. We have to, it's been fun to look at. And, I talked to Luke Fenhouse after that race, and it was, my goodness.
Can you even imagine being in his shoes too? Like, all of a sudden, one day you're racing the Slinger Nationals, just hoping to win that race. And then all of a sudden you're on CBS racing against legends of the sport. That's just so cool to me.
Yeah. And then he's off racing the ARCA. Of course, he's in the ARCA Midwest Tour this year, and he was like second in the points, and his race got rained out because he went to go run the SRX race. So must have worked out. I mean, really, really nice kid, down to earth. I mean, he's comes family owns a farm and stuff, and one a down to earth kid. If you ever get to talk to him, it's definitely worth your time. He's a kid trying to make his name out there. We could see him in ARCA or the Truck Series or something like that. So
that's the awesome part about all of this, is that all of a sudden these guys that you didn't think were going to get opportunities, all of a sudden they're getting the opportunities. I just love that so much. I know I've said that a couple of times, but that's just so cool to me. That's just wild, because that's not something that we expected.
Yeah. Okay. We talked about all the successes this year. Actually, one more thing. Forgot about this. We didn't even, the championship wasn't really mentioned that much. And to me, I don't care. It's supposed to be, what I cared about was how it was a good race. And I just really cared who won it. The championship didn't matter to me. I know the championship matters to everybody out. I mean, for a lot of people, but it was just fun. Fun getting to see everybody out there and all that stuff. And yeah.
It's another really good point by you. And yeah, it's just like, I don't even think people really cared about how the points format worked. Because to be honest with you, half the time I didn't really know how the points format worked with something like this. But it was just fun to kind of just like, I think we all take racing so serious, whether it's NASCAR, whether it's IndyCar, whether it's whatever. We take it so seriously where like everything has to be a certain way. Where this one, it was kind of just nice to like sit back, relax, enjoy these guys that we've grown up watching, and just have fun with it. And like, I think that's the key word that you said right there, is it was fun. Like, I didn't like Tony Stewart, he clinched the championship right away. And I don't think really anybody really cared. You're not going to be seeing articles about how Tony Stewart won the first ever SRX championship. Big deal to him. But everybody else, it's just, we're just here to have fun, man. I think they nailed that.
I mean, it is a big deal to be the first SRX champion. So, I mean, he did say that in his post-race show. I will get a post-race interview. I will give him that. I'll tell you what, who also had fun, the guys calling the race. CBS. I mean, I talked to a couple of those guys after it. I mean, they were fired up. I talked to Alan Bestrick earlier this year, and he was all fun and that. And now, everyone gets excited whenever he's involved in something. And then just good to see Matt Yoakum on TV, of course. Matt's a proud Michigander like myself. Good to see Lindsey Zarniak and Brad Doherty and James Hinchcliffe, really, really good in the booth as well.
I think that's the thing. TV, and it's another thing where we're, especially with NASCAR, I feel like we're very critical with what's going on in the NASCAR TV. This CBS nailed every single aspect of it. It felt like every single weekend, whether it was James Hinchcliffe, whether it was Danica, whether it was Dario, all of them. Oh, I am so sorry for the cat in the way.
Hey, not the first time a cat's been in my videos, so all good.
I did not realize he was over here. Pumpkin says hello, but that's how to say.
Hey, that's gonna get a lot of hits on YouTube. So there.
He's done it to me a couple of times while I've been on Zoom interviews with other people. So. Usually I try to lock him up. He snuck out on me this time. But yeah.
Nice.
CBS does a better presentation broadcast to bring it back than I do, obviously. And it was just so cool to see. Like, I couldn't really find many flaws with their TV broadcast. It's something where it's just like you have people looking at their broadcast and kind of just being like, man, NASCAR can learn a thing or two from this. And that's kind of the cool thing. We kind of saw that. I don't know if you really followed it, what like the XFL and the NFL way back in like the early 2000s, where they kind of developed some things that the NFL kind of took and grabbed from it. I hope that's something that we kind of see from there, because it was really like, as much as like the championship and all that wasn't a big picture of it, the broadcast really made you feel like you were having fun with this series. And I think they did their job absolutely perfully. Props to those guys.
I'm just laughing at the cat that jumped in the video. I love it when that happens.
He usually he's loud, and today he decided to be quiet and sneaky. So Pumpkin gets to make an appearance.
That's funny. I love it when cats jump in videos. It makes it more entertaining. But anyway, speaking of entertaining, next year, you know, everyone's talking about how many races are going to be in there next year, how many things are going to, you know, who's going to be driving in the series and all that. And everybody has their wish list of tracks. I think Michael Walter put his out. So I didn't put mine out. I have some ideas. There's some tracks I'd like to see still on there. But then again, and Tony Stewart said this, they have more tracks that have called and said, why don't you be a part of this? And then others say, and everyone has their own specific track. They want to see their track on there. And I saw Jeff Striegel from MRN put out, of course, he is also the GM for Berlin. It'd actually be pretty cool to see Berlin on SRX. But is there, okay, name a couple tracks that you would like to see on the schedule.
So I had two in mind. One that is maybe a little bit more realistic because it's an ARCA track, and one that's just Mitchell's throwing out a track out there for no apparent reason. First one, I think Winchester would be really fun to go to with these cars. Yeah. I didn't really experience much with Winchester, but last year when I was fully engulfed in the ARCA Nard Series season, I watched my first race there and I was just like, man, this is a really fun racetrack. And I feel like SRX with those cars, I feel like that track would just align perfectly with them.
Yeah.
The less realistic one, and this is one that's close to my heart because it wasn't too far away from where I went to college. La Crosse Fairgrounds, they have a big October race weekend, Oktoberfest race weekend at the beginning of October. Incorporate a short track driver from there, throw him on the SRX scene. I think that would be really cool. And honestly, with this, it's not even really that far-fetched of an idea because you had all these short tracks that came in and they all worked. It was like, there wasn't really like a bad race per se with SRX. And I mean, I don't think you could really, that's the beauty of this. I don't really think you could go wrong with any short track across America. Heck, if you want to try and find a road course to throw on the schedule, I don't think you could go wrong. It's just the series. It works. There's not really, I wish there was a more specific way that could sound smarter, but it just works. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So I also heard this, more races. I know they kind of talked about that. I don't want to make too many because with the title schedule. Here's another thing. Keep it on big CBS because I think Adam Stern reported this. John Madden, the legendary football coach, I think called a couple people and said, "Hey, you know, it's SRX. That's pretty good."
That was a good impression. I'll give you that.
So,
but yeah, I agree with that. I think, and that might come with maybe only having a 6 or maybe even an 8 race schedule. But if that's what works, keep it on big CBS, do it. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like that's another thing that race fans have been wanting is more races that they don't have to get NBCSN, ESPN, whatever. They want these races on local TV. I think that's another really big strong suit to this series. And if whatever they do, I think that's one of the big key points is do whatever it takes to keep it on CBS. I can't imagine they have anything else that crazy lined up for the Saturday night time slot anyways.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, and this is a time where, you know, CBS is kind of looking for that looking for content because, you know, this is the summer point in the season, not really a lot of things going on, you know, before getting ready because, you know, they have half the NFL card, they got college football, of course they got all the March Madness, and then of course they got the PGA Tour, which, you know, goes on throughout the year. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of that period in the season where really not a lot's going on. It's definitely worked out, and it worked out well.
And even looking at it from outside CBS perspective, you don't really have many motorsports that are going on Saturday night competing with SRX. Of course, you have a little bit of ARCA, but like you don't have like an Xfinity Series race on Saturday night. You don't have a Cup race on Saturday night during the schedule like you used to. I think it kind of fills that void. And I know like Saturday night races with NASCAR right now are a little bit taboo because maybe the ratings aren't as good as they are on Sunday. But these guys came out and showed, hey, we can put on a good 2-hour show on Saturday nights. You can watch it, go and do something else with the rest of your night and have fun with it. And I think that 2-hour time slot really works to their advantage as well. And it was nice to see that they kind of learned from that first race where it kind of went a little bit over the time slot. But I think if any race were to go over, I think that first race was the perfect one to go over.
Yeah, of course. So definitely, because this is supposed to be, you know, the fun series, and I felt like that was there, and it kept on the big network and all that, and hey, it really worked out well. But it'll be interesting to see how they do their schedule. They're having a little bit of off time right now, and then start planning for this season because a lot of the TV crew, a lot of the drivers, and a lot of the guys building the cars, they need a break after 6 weeks of all that.
Especially after those last couple of races where it just seems like all they could do was wreck. And those poor crew guys were probably just like, are you kidding me? Like, we just fixed these cars. We got to come and fix them again. Poor Bill Elliott, half the season, his car wasn't even handling correctly. And it's just like, I don't envy the position those guys in. As much as me and you are just like, oh, let's get another 4 weeks in there. They're probably just like, oh my gosh, thank goodness we're at the end of the 6 weeks. It's been so much work.
Yeah, it's tolling on a lot of these guys. So very well deserved break, and then it's back to the shop and to see what we can do for next year. But anyway, hey, a couple more people I forgot to thank in the last episode. Big shout out to Mike Arning, Laz Dennis, and everybody at True Speed for helping us out with all the Zoom calls. Really appreciate that. And also a big shout out to Walt Shear at CBS Sports Communications for helping me out with getting some of the CBS talent to come on and talk with us. So, and
absolutely. And from my perspective too, those people that you just named, they're not going to get the credit that they deserve because people that are just watching on Saturday night they don't care about that. But for guys like me and you, those people were so helpful and so friendly. And it was just like, I was emailing some of them trying to set up my interview with Bobby Labonte, and I was interviewing him all the way until like 11:30 at night. And I was just shooting off emails thinking, oh, they're not going to respond right away. 5 minutes later, I have an email in my inbox, and I cannot give them enough credit for that because just working on this side of the industry, it's so nice to have. It's nice to just have email in the morning, let alone at 11:30 at night.
Of course. All right, Mr. Brewer, thank you so much for coming on and talking some SRX, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the NASCAR preview show at Watkins Glen.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.